they act like they're running with their hair on fire, and they're running don't take this the wrong way, but they're running a $500,000 practice, and they're acting like they're running a $5 million practice.
Welcome to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa, brought to you by Elite Consulting Partners. It's the only podcast offering unfiltered guidance and a direct advice for all things concerning financial advisors, RIAs, and the practitioners in the wealth management business. And now, welcome to the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa. I am your host once again, not always, but almost always, your host, Frank LaRosa, and joined by my lovely co-host, Stacey Frank. Stacey with an E. How you doing?
Doing great.
Hey,
Happy to be back.
Blue Day. We didn't even coordinate.
Got the blue memo?
Yeah, right. For those of you that are listening to us, you can also look at us, watch us on YouTube at our Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa channel. It's pretty good. It's growing. It's awesome. Anyway, so today we are going to talk about what do you want to be when you grow up? And that seems like a funny question, but it's a question that we ask our clients all the time because it's a question that gets them to really think about what they're trying to get accomplished, right? We talk to a lot of advisors, and they're unhappy at the firm that they're at for whatever reason. It doesn't matter. And a lot of times they don't really have a waypoint, like they know they want to leave. They know why they want to leave, but they're not really sure what they are looking for. Where do they want to go?
What's the end game?
Right.
They're not connected to the end game just
right.
yet.
And so what I have found, and it's really started off sort of as it's a funny question, but what I found was asking advisors, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Whether I ask this question to people that are doing 500,000 and doing 5 million, it doesn't matter because it gets you to think about what you're trying to get accomplished. Because the worst mistake that you can make as an advisor when you're moving firms is not do the right due diligence and go to a firm that just solves a very short-term problem, right? But it really doesn't solve maybe the longer-term problem that you're truly trying to solve for.
And it's ironic, as you might say, what do you want to be when you grow up? My version of it is, what is the vision that you have for your business? And it's amazing that oftentimes we might get, I never thought about that, or no one ever asked me that, and they don't know how to define it yet. So that's what we're here for, is to help uncover what do you want to be when you grow up, and what is the vision that you have for your business. We can help you get there.
Yeah, that, and also, there's some things, it's interesting. This is we're recording this, and tomorrow I'm going out to Las Vegas again to go meet with Alex Ramosi. For those of you that don't know him, you should follow him on YouTube, and he does a lot of stuff on YouTube. All practical business-related stuff that even financial advisors should take some of the stuff that he talks about and implement it. Anyway, so I'm going there. And so, when we think about what do you want to be to grow up, a lot of times it comes down to, are you a practitioner, are you a business owner, or do you want to build an enterprise, right? And depending on what you decide determines what your world looks like.
And there are distinct differences.
Right.
So in your mind, Frank, so here's a question for you. What is the difference between a practice, a business, and an enterprise?
Right. So a practice in my world, if I describe an advisor as a practitioner, they're typically in a W-2 space, right? Even if they have a team, they can have 20 people. Right. And yes, that looks like a business, but it's still a practice.
You're running a practice, you're serving clients.
You're serving, well, everybody, they're all serving. Well, I guess you are serving clients, but even, we work with some large teams, and the principals of those teams, they're not really working with clients that much, right? But they're still running a practice because they're not paying the bills. They're not paying the rent. They're not paying for insurance coverage. They're not paying for the technology. There's things that they're not paying for that the firms are paying for.
They're not making operational business decisions.
They have no risk.
There's no risk. Less risk.
Less risk, but there's no risk,
okay.
Right? If you take that same practice, so let's call it let's say it's a team of 5 advisors. They're all practitioners, right? If you take that same business, now they go independent, and they have to rent their own office. They have to, obviously select a firm that's going to have the right technology, but they're paying for the technology in some form or fashion, right? They're having to have their own business coverage. They're paying for their own staff. They're paying for their own health insurance. They're paying their own taxes. They're paying all those things. Now you are a business owner. You are now taking risk because if something doesn't work, the rent's still due. Right. The utilities they still have to be paid.
Right. Or if your assistant leaves or takes another job somewhere, you're responsible for filling that gap.
Right. If you look at, during COVID, right, when everything shut down and, business owners, right, if you were a practitioner, you worked at Merrill Lynch or Morgan, doesn't matter, right, and you got to work from home, nothing really changed.
Right.
You weren't paying rent, so you were still making the same amount of money. But if you were a business owner, and you had staff that you had to figure out what to do with, right? You're paying the staff to go work at home. You're now paying rent for a facility that you haven't been in a year. Now, if it's like me, I was in my office every single day. Everybody else was at home. There are things that you are on the hook for no matter what happens. That's a business owner.
Right, and you're worrying about things that are causing the business to be profitable or not profitable. We talk about that all the time versus just running a practice of clients in a W-2 capacity.
Even when you're, even if a large producer at a wirehouse firm, we know these stories, right? You talk to a large producer at a wirehouse firm and they're like, yeah, I want to hire an assistant, but I'm not allowed, even if I want to pay for them because the firm has a no hire freeze, right? Like that's the difference between being a practitioner and being a business owner. When you're a business owner, you can hire anyone you want, right? You can hire anyone you want. You can pay them whatever you want. You can bonus them however you want. You can come up with your own comp structure. That's the difference between a practitioner and a business owner, right? There's lots of other differences, but those are the sort of the main differences, right? Now, what does it to mean to be a practitioner, a business owner, to becoming an enterprise?
And those are two totally different things as well.
Two totally different
goals, totally different things that you have to accomplish to achieve that.
Right, because you can be
mindset
business owner and have multiple locations, right? But it's all essentially under one umbrella. You have maybe a couple of different offices. When you become an enterprise leader, or when you become an enterprise business owner, sort of redundant, an enterprise business owner, right? When you want to build an enterprise business. You have a staff that is running the majority of the work. You are most likely, as the principal, not working with any clients anymore. You are now focusing on working on the business. You might have an entirely W-2 model where you have financial advisors that are working underneath you all over the country, or, which is very popular, you have a large enterprise or an OSJ model, which is an enterprise, which is why they call it large enterprise, where you maybe have 20 or 30 or 40 or more advisors that roll up underneath you and you're the OSJ. I mean, you're providing ancillary services to them and you're collecting overrides, but you are still running your business, the larger business, as I'll call it the parent firm. If you're watching me on YouTube, you'll see I use my hands a lot. So the parent firm at the top, and then you're providing services, enterprise level services to the advisors underneath you, right? And those are very different things. And it's also very different skill sets, right? For you to be a leader of an enterprise is much different than being a leader of your own small business. And if I can just go back to the business owner one, right? I still consider a solo advisor who runs their own business a business owner.
Who's independent,
right? They're not a practitioner because they own the business.
Right. Well, they're not just a practitioner.
Right.
With all due respect, like you can be a practitioner and just a practitioner, but to be a business owner, if you're still working with clients, there's the crossover.
Yeah, I just ask who pays the rent.
Right. Right.
Who pays the rent? Do you or does the firm? Oh, the firm does. Then you're a practitioner.
Right. Good delineation.
Right. And so, when we talk to, it's interesting because when we talk to advisors and we ask them these questions about what do you want to be when you grow up, many of them don't know. But it also helps us create some direction and leads into different conversations. So like, for instance, someone might say, well, they say they own their own business, right? So they're a business owner, they're independent. And they say, well, I want to build an enterprise. I have this big goal. blah, 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 right? And
multiple locations across the country, East Coast, West Coast.
Right. So one of the questions where I go is, well, tell me about the team that you have. And they're like, well, no, it's just me and an assistant. And I'm like, okay, you're a long ways away from building an enterprise, right? And I get into, because when you want to build an enterprise, you can't look at staff and people that you bring on board as an expense. You have to look at that as an investment in the long-term growth of the business. And you have to start pulling yourself away from the day-to-day operational things that a business owner is generally getting not stuck in, but they're generally doing all the course of the day. Like, so I do this strategic coach program in Chicago. It's Dan Sullivan. If you read any Dan Sullivan's books, one of the best books that I've read is called Who, Not How. And that is really about you as a business owner and entrepreneur surrounding yourself with people that do other things exceptionally well that they love to do, so that you can focus on the things that you love to do really well, right? And so if you want to build a large enterprise, then you as the owner, as a principal, have to be focusing on those things that build the large enterprise. And working with individual clients is not that.
Right. And I think part of the goal of this podcast is to talk about scale.
Right.
And how, if you want to become an enterprise and have those multiple office locations and have that kind of growth mindset, then you have to build scale and resources into that strategy.
Right.
Otherwise, how can you be efficient to do that?
Right. Like, so we'll talk to an advisor and they'll be like, oh, I'll say they act like they're so busy, but they act like they're so busy, right? And then I ask them, well, tell me about your business. What do you do in production? Well, I do like 800. Okay, so how are you? If you're that busy and you're only doing $800,000, you're doing things inefficiently, right? You're not ready to scale your business.
Right. You probably have no systems, no automation.
Nothing. They're still doing things the old-fashioned way. They're taking all their client phone calls all
right.
all
You're
times
not
of the
delegating
night.
the right way.
They're not delegating. Maybe they have a good assistant, maybe, but they're still doing all of their own bookkeeping. They're still, basically doing a lot of the paperwork themselves. They're not delegating or creating processes that simplify that stuff. And then they want to have this big, bold conversation about what they want to do, but they haven't learned what's necessary in order to scale. And I guess, we've talked about this once before, like if you want to scale your business to whatever that goal is, you have to act now as if that business is that size to a degree. I'm not saying go out and hire 15 people, right?
Well, you have to start putting those systems in place while you're, let's say if you're 800,000, now you're, 1.5 million and then, getting to 500 million. You have to start doing those things, those efficient processes when you're smaller, so that when you're double the size in revenue, clients and staff, that those systems are in place.
Right. Like, for us, we look at our systems and some of the training tools that we built and are building. And the idea is like, okay, when we're at 100 people or more, I think we're at somewhere close to 70 or whatever, right? When we're at 100 to 150 people, I guess we need to move that mark, because we used to say that when we were at like 30 people.
Right.
So let's say when we're at 200 people, right? What does our training need to look like in order to deliver the training and the skills and all that stuff for all those people? And let's start building that now. It doesn't have to be maybe as robust, but the core needs to be put in place, right? The team that we have here needs to be the team that will help get us there. So as a financial advisor, you have to think about it the same way. If you want to go from 800 to 8 million, right? You got to figure out, what is your team going to look like? What are the things that you have to try to automate today that you're doing? Because you're never going to get there. You'll never get out of the starting block, right? If you don't automate some of the basic things today, you will never even get on the way.
Yeah. And just to kind of put you on the spot here, but I know that there were conversations maybe a few years ago that we would have. It'd be like, Frank, you have to let go of the vine. You have this vision of growth, adding people and adding different channels of business. You have to let go of doing those certain things that are taking you away from the ultimate vision of growth that you have. So a little bit of letting go of the vine there had to happen.
Yeah,
just saying.
Yeah, you have to be. Look, most advisors that I know are type A personalities. We're all type A, control. And in order to go from a business owner to, when you go from a practitioner to a business owner, I actually think you increase the vine hold, right? You actually hold on tighter because you're not used to, it's all new to you, right?
Right.
And so you go through
it's a process.
You go through this evolution, right? But in order then to go from a business owner to an enterprise level business, you have to learn how to let go of the vine.
That's my point.
And let go of, let
Put
go
you
of
right
some
into
of the
my
controls. So like for us, it was, I'll use the best example is, our business development associates, right? So our sort of, we'll call them our farm team, our trainees, right?
People that do a lot of the outreach.
Right. And I used to interview everybody. And I used to do like the annual review, and it was time consuming. And then I started to okay, I'll only interview them at the end of the process. And that was me letting go in the vine a little bit. But then now it's got to a point where I'm not involved at all in the process. And because I trust the team that I built around me to find the right people and bring them in. And then also, this whole sort of hire slow, fire fast kind of thing, and identify using data, which is a whole nother thing, which not for this topic, but, understanding data around what we're trying to do. I know that they understand the data. And when the data shows us that someone is not going to make it here and be successful, then, we sort of coach them out, right? I used to be involved in all of that stuff, and it used to take up so much of my time.
Yeah.
And now I don't anymore.
I think the message is you can't be the CEO, the HR person, the CFO, the hiring manager, the advisor, transitioning guru. You can't do all those things and then achieve the scale that you want.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things.
That was huge.
One of the interesting exercises that we did maybe 6 months ago. So within Strategic Coach, they have you do this thing about sort of what is your unique ability, right? And there's really 4 categories that you focus on. And the first category is your ultimate category, and that is what are the things that you really love doing and you're really, really good at. That's where you want to spend the majority of your time. And the second category is what are the things that you're really good at, but maybe sort of they're not they don't bring you a ton of joy, right? You're good at them, but you just don't love doing it. Third is you're good at it, but you don't like it at all, right? So for me, as an example, is I'm good at managing HR stuff, but I don't like it, right? I don't like doing it. I don't
dealing
like the
with
drama.
some of the problems.
I don't like the drama. I don't like any of that stuff, right? But I'm good at it because I've been doing this for 30 years. And then the fourth is things that you're not good at and you don't like doing, which fortunately for me, I don't really deal with any of that stuff.
Well, you can't scale if you keep getting involved in those things.
But the exercise that we did is I had my entire team, Stacey included, wrote down on their own. They had those categories. Basically, they wrote down what from their perspective, what do I do during the course of our week and our month of our year? Where do I spend my time from their perspective, right? And then I took all of those things, and there was a bunch of them. It wasn't like, well, what do I do for a living? It wasn't like that. It was like observation. What are the things that you think that I do during the course of a day?
What do we observe?
Talk to clients, deal with legal stuff, deal with HR stuff, deal with economics, deal with firms, whatever it is, right? All of those things. And then we categorized them. And then over the last, 6 months or so, I worked on moving whatever I had in that third category, which is I'm good at but don't like doing. I worked on figuring out who on my team in those categories is good at those things and likes doing them, right? And so I delegated all of those things. So I don't really do any of that stuff for the most part. Maybe I still touch my toe into the HR piece only because it's it can affect the company. So I have to have some, but I don't sort of interact.
But I think it also opens the doors for us. Wow, we don't have somebody that can do that. Like with on our financial side, on our technology side, I think we identified through that exercise of, wow, there's the gap. So now we need to hire to help us scale, to help us grow.
Right. So that for me, I can spend my time in category, basically spend, I would say 60% of my time in that first category and more or less 40% of my time in the second category. Things that I'm good at, maybe they don't bring me tons of joy, right? But I'm still good at it. I don't not like it. I don't love it. Like, for instance, working with clients, working with advisors. I love doing it. I love coaching. I love being that. So if I could spend my entire day doing that, that would be like Xanadu, right? And it would drive more revenue to the firm, right? I love coaching. I even for people in our office. Like I love to do that. I just need to do more of it. But in order for me to do more of that, I have to give up some other things. Where we're going with this is, if you are trying to build a large enterprise, which we talk to a lot of advisors that this is what they want to do. They want to build large enterprise, and I want to grow inorganically, right? But you still want to deal with all your clients. That's going to be very difficult unless you can figure out a system and processes that allow you to do those things. And the reality is, if you go through the exercise and you focusing on your larger clients, by you spending more time with your larger clients would bring more AUM in and bring more revenue in, then that is your unique ability. And that you can still build your large enterprise knowing that your role is sort of vision of the business and working with your wealthiest clients, right? That's where you have to focus your time, and then you have to delegate everything else around you.
Yeah, that might mean bringing in junior advisors. It might be hiring another assistant, hiring someone to do the financials.
Hiring a CFO. Right. Full-time CFO. Not, I see these large I'll call them, large businesses. They're not enterprises yet, but they're large businesses, and they generate millions of dollars in revenue. And they're still farming out their financial stuff to, their accountant, right? Which is really part-time, which is, I think it's a big mistake, because you need to understand your financials. I know what this is when you're in financial services, but I'm shocked when I talk to advisors about their practices.
They're not aware.
And they're not aware of
their P&L.
Of their P&L. They're not aware what their gross margins are. They're not aware what their cost of client acquisition is. They're not aware what their lifetime value of a client is. All of these things, which can help you then make decisions on where to invest, what kind of advisors you should be acquiring if you want to grow inorganically, what kind of advisors you should acquire. What are you going to pay for that practice? All of those things, you need to have data to understand what works and what doesn't work within your business. And so if you don't have a full-time CFO that's able to do those things for you, you're not going to operate very well. And so those are the kinds of things that you're saying of building a team around you. Look, sales training. You do a lot of our sales training. You're a player coach. You work with same deal. Your unique abilities are teaching and educating because of your background, right? And your master's degree in psychology, and working with clients. And so our goal with you is always to keep you in those. Yeah. How do we keep you in those two buckets?
Because the two intersect, tremendously.
Right. But so again, if you, it's just I can always tell the type of advisor someone is when I talk to them based on the response of when I'm asking them to do things, when I'm asking them to meet a firm or whatever, and they act like they're running with their hair on fire, and they're running don't take this the wrong way, but they're running a $500,000 practice, and they're acting like they're running a $5 million practice.
Right. Well, and it's about the systems or lack thereof that they never thought to put into their business from the get-go. So now they're growing, they're gaining more clients, things are always changing, and they never built that systems in place. So growth, it's going to feel like they're running with their hair on fire. Right. Like a chicken with their head cut off.
And if you think about client experience as an example, so they're bringing new clients in and they haven't changed their process. So at some point, your client service model is going to crack, right? At some point, you're going to grow beyond the number of clients you can handle and your assistant can handle. So a couple of things are going to happen. Your clients are going to get disappointed, and then maybe they'll leave, or maybe they won't leave. You just won't get any more referrals, or your assistant is going to feel like she's completely overwhelmed, right? And you're running with your hair on fire. So you're not paying attention to the fact that feels like she's unappreciated, and you haven't given her a raise in a long time, and she's burned out, and she leaves. And then you're really in trouble.
Yeah, and I love advisors. And look, we're here to help advisors grow through acquisition, through inorganic growth, as we call it. Yep. I'm a $100 million practice. I want to get to $200 million. So bring me all your $100 to $150 million practices. I'm a solo advisor. So what do you normally say to advisors that want that kind of exponential growth, that are, I'm one advisor with one assistant.
Yeah. Well, usually when an advisor wants to grow inorganically, and they're $150 million advisor, and they want to buy $150 million practices.
You're doubling your practice.
Yeah, I usually tell them to start smaller. Start with a $30 or $40 million practice, not because it's going to cost you less, right? Because what you don't want to do is mess up that first transaction, and you don't want to put any stress, any undue stress on your existing book of business, and swallowing a business that's the same size as yours or even bigger is a huge mistake, and you're going to pay a lot of money for it, and you need to make sure that you're as efficient as possible to make that practice work. So I'd usually say is let's look for a book that's $30 or $40 million. If you're a high advisory based book of business, let's look for a book. Maybe there's some opportunity where there's a low advisory. So a lot of brokerage, a lot of mutual funds, number one, you're going to pay less for that book of business because of the valuations, right? And there's a bigger opportunity to grow that practice, right? Versus if you buy $100 million. Well, yeah, if you buy a practice, it's $100 million and it's 90% fee based, right? Okay, great. Congratulations. It's a nice book of business. You're going to pay a premium for it. And how much exponential growth are you going to get out of that practice because it's already advisory based, right? Versus a $100 million book that's transaction based, you're going to pay half the price for it. And if you get in with your process and the way you talk to your clients with an advisor, with a client that's basically been with a transaction based advisor their whole life, you're going to show them the light. You're going to show them the new way to do things. It's going to be much easier to convert that client that's maybe got $5 million to an advisory-based business. I'm not saying that it's going to be all easy because some clients will just be resistant, but the data shows us that that's not the case, right? The data shows us that that's the better book to buy. We're going off on a little bit of a tangent, but the point is...
But it's about building systems that you can scale and get to be that enterprise-type practice that business that you want to be.
So you need to leverage technology. You need to leverage your systems. You need to basically understand where you want to go. If you're okay being a business owner, that's okay. Like I have some clients that really have no interest in building an enterprise, right? They're a practitioner today. They just want to be a business owner. They want to have a nice branch.
Yeah, we want to grow our client base with this type of client.
Yeah. They're not really looking at acquiring practices because they don't really want somebody else's broken toys, right? Not that they're broken toys, but they just want their own thing, and it's okay. But the point is that conversation started with, what do you want to be when you grow up, right? The reality is some of those advisors, they want to be a business owner and they want to live a more, I'll call it, balanced life, right? They enjoy working with their clients. They are okay. I have one client that they actually don't take any new clients unless it comes from a referral from one of their top clients. Like they have no interest in doing any marketing. They have no interest in acquiring practices. To them, it's their lifestyle, the Midwestern firm, and that's okay. And so, but I wouldn't have known that if I didn't ask them those peeled onion questions about what do you want to be. So it allowed me to find the right solution for them based on what they were looking for. Because the other thing we sort of haven't really talked about, when we hear from a client that they want to be an enterprise level business or they want to be a business owner, that actually means different things to different firms. And some firms are better at those things than other firms.
Right. And some firms don't necessarily want that model.
They don't.
We don't have to name firms, but there's no margin or there's more risk or whatever the reason is.
Yeah, there are some firms that if you want to be a large enterprise, there are some firms that really just do not want you to do that on their platform.
Yeah. Are they OSJ friendly or are they not OSJ friendly? To be an OSJ friendly firm or not?
Not to be. To be or not to be. Right. And so,
but that's true.
That's why it's really important for us to have those conversations and ask, what do you want to be when you grow up? Because if somebody says, I want to build a, 300, advisor, OSJ, large enterprise, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Well, that's going to limit. It's not going to limit, but it's going to take out certain firms. And we're not going to name firms. That's not what we're doing here. But just understand, maybe it's because we want you to call us and we can help you through that. But the reality is there are some firms that are better at that than others. Not better, that support
that's just not their
the growth
model.
of that.
Right.
Right. That's not their model. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. You just need to understand which firms those are and which firms they're not, so that you can match up what you want to do. To my earlier point, our goal when we work with a client is not necessarily to try to solve. We are trying to solve their immediate pain point, right? Whatever it is. But we also at the same time want to make sure that we're solving for their long-term goals and vision.
Right.
So they don't outgrow the firm that they go to.
And that's the problem. Well, I like this firm X because they have a really robust transition package, the technology, blah, blah, blah. But then 5 years from now, that's not the firm that ultimately wants to support the growth of a large enterprise like that. And then you're thinking, oh gosh, now it's time to move again. And we don't want to do that.
Right. Well, I don't want to get into the different firms, but
No.
I had to talk to a client and we were comparing two different firms. One firm that they were looking at was much smaller, a little newer in sort of tenure. Another firm was extremely large, very large. So you can sort of surmise who that might be.
Yeah.
And we were talking about inorganic growth. And I said, listen, I'm not going to, firm quality side, I wasn't getting into that. I said, one firm's much smaller. They only have, let's just call it 1,000 advisors. And one firm has a lot. Okay. So which pond is better to fish in if you want to be an acquirer of practices at the firm?
Right. It's probably the firm that gives you access to the bigger pool of advisors.
Exactly.
That's simple math.
And this is a very sophisticated advisor, and he didn't even think about it that way. Right. Which is why I love what I do, because we're trying to just get our advisors to think through things through a different lens. And because that will sort of dictate the direction that you want to go. Now, that bigger firm, he wasn't interested in it for different reasons, but I was still explaining to him why that might be why that maybe should be he should reconsider that firm if that's like one of their key drivers. Like if that is your number one thing that you're going to put in your business plan, that is acquisition of sort of internal acquisitions, right, of firms, then you have to look at firms that have a lot of advisors, as long as that firm is going to allow you to do that. Right? They can have a lot of advisors and not allow you to do that, right? But there are none that really like that. But because he was leaning towards a firm that is, I'll just call it, hasn't been around as long, right? So they don't, not only do they not have a lot of advisors headcount wise, but all of the advisors there are all new, right? I mean, probably all of them are on deals, and so like, where's your acquisition opportunity? There is none, zero.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh, I never thought about it that way."
Yeah. Well, they have to think about it sooner than later. The worst thing is making the wrong decision, going to the wrong firm for the wrong reasons.
Right.
That's hard. That's harder to unwind.
So anyway, I think that our takeaway from this is really think about whether you want to move or not. It doesn't really matter. Think about, what do you want to be when you grow up, and what does your business practice or large enterprise look like, or what do you want it to look like? What is your vision of the future? And then you have to actually give a hard look at your firm that you're currently sitting in, and figure out whether or not they're the right firm to help you achieve those goals for all the different reasons, right?
And I think one of the things that we're exceptional about and can be unbiased towards is if your vision of being an enterprise, but your actions and business objectives to achieve that are not aligned, we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, we have a lot to talk about. And if you decide that the firm that you're at, you want to be a business owner, so you're at an independent firm, yes, that the firm sort of checks off a lot of boxes, but you're not growing as fast as you want, or you want to do acquisitions. Those are the things that we can help with, right? So we can help you with marketing. We can help you with acquisitions with our M&A firm. The data component, which we can really help you with, it sort of ties some of that together. So our point is, we have the ability to help you across the spectrum, even if you don't want to move. So that's why we have these conversations, because yes, the majority of the services that we offer are helping advisors find the right new home for them, right? And we power them to make the right choice, not just the next choice. But it's all these other things that we love talking about as well. And as a business owner, of a large scale business, I love talking to business owners and help them wanting to build large scale businesses. It's what we love to do. You love to do it too. It's life changing.
It is life changing. And as we take an advisor,
not life changing for us. It's life changing when we help we help somebody build out a new business that ends up becoming life changing for them and the people around them and their clients.
Right. And a lot of times when they go through this process with us, that vision unravels. It becomes clearer and more defined as what they want, and then we can sort of shift them to get there.
Yeah, it's funny. It becomes clear. I was talking to my wife over the weekend about something, and she wants to sort of build this closet system for her bags. Anyway, and I was explaining to her the reason why she's struggling with sort of what she wants it to look like is because she doesn't have a clear vision of it yet. It's very foggy. I usually sort of like it's a very foggy vision. She sort of can see it, but it's sort of foggy. And
connect to the end goal.
And the more she thinks about it, the more the fog will lift, and she'll know what she wants to do when she can see it clearly, as if it's there when she walks into the room. And advisors have to feel the same way. You have to be thinking about your business long term, and almost like living in the future. Like, what does it feel like?
Acting as if.
Not fake it till you make it.
Nope.
But acting as if. So understanding how many. This is what you were talking about before. We used to have a vision of our firm. We wanted to have 25 branches, 25 offices all over the country, doing blah 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 blah. Right. And that was a vision that we had. And we sort of modified it as time grew on, because we started taking some of our own advice about scalability and processes and systems and efficiencies. And what we learned was that's a more inefficient way to get to our end goal. Our end goal hasn't changed, which is what our end goal is.
Still the same.
Right? Still the same number, which is a big number. But we've realized that we can do that more effectively and efficiently, essentially in one location. Right, well, we have consultants all over the country, but the core of the business that drives the engine of our business is in one location, because we can do all the training, we can do all the systems, we can do all the data, we can have all the meetings in one location. So our vision hasn't changed in terms of where we want to go, but how we're going to get there.
The roadmap is a little different.
The roadmap is a little bit different. And you all have to have the same attitude in terms of where you want to go. So you might have this vision, but you have to figure out, is the firm that you're at, like the current path, I'll call it, is that current path the path that's going to get you there? And if it's not, don't be afraid to pivot, right? Because we talked about our vision for a long time, and it took a little bit of us to admit, like, okay,
it doesn't feel right.
Sounds really cool to do, but it doesn't feel right.
Yep.
Right? It seems like more work, more inefficiencies, which is going to slow us down. And so, we pivoted. And that's what I think advisors need to do, is that I understand many of you might know, like you maybe know you don't want to switch firms because you think it's going to be a lot more work. But the reality is, if it doesn't fit the vision of where you're trying to go, you owe it to yourself and to your clients and to your team and your future team and your family to make that pivot, because it's so much better when you align your actions with your goals and your vision, truly, versus what sounds really. You have to just be honest with yourself. Like,
now you're doing the right things to get there.
Right. Exactly. So, anyway, with that said, I hope this helps. I know we sort of went on a couple different tangents there a little bit.
These are the actual conversations that we're having with advisors, and they're coming at us in so many different ways and mindsets and what their vision is.
When we're done, you have to get on the phone with somebody to talk about their new office location.
There's no right or wrong answer.
There's no
whether you're a practice, a business, or an enterprise.
And we can help all of those scenarios, right? It's just understanding and being truthful with yourself with what do you want to be when you grow up. And so that's the takeaway. Think about that. What do you want to be when you grow up? If you want to have a conversation with us about what does that mean and what does that align you with and what firms you should be looking at based on what you want to be when you grow up, you can give us a call. You can call Stacey all the time.
Stacey at eliteconsultingpartners.com, Stacey with an E, or at 856-816-6322, or Frank
at eliteconsultingpartners.com, and you can call me at 856-316-4651. You can also check me out on my Instagram account, which is franklarosa.elite. 270 some odd followers, 70,000 followers and growing. We're super excited. Anyway, love to hear from you. Thanks a lot for listening. And if you know anybody that's struggling with some of these things, please share this with them. They might not hear about us. I don't know how, but they might not have ever heard from us. And this is a podcast for entrepreneurs too. It's not just financial advisors.
Yeah,
it's the same principle, any business. So with that said, we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa. If you're looking for more advice or solutions on any topics relating to the financial services industry, or just want to subscribe to our podcast, head on over to eliteconsultingpartners.com/podcast.